Welcome to Cheers to This, the podcast where meaningful conversation is mixed with a good drink. I'm your host, Jay Hutchins, and today we're joined by Chanel, who understands the power of defining yourself online. So feel free to pour yourself a drink and join the conversation. Hi,
Absolutely.
Chanel. How's
Hi.
it going?
It's going so good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. Now, Chanel, there's an important question that we have got to start with.
hmm
What's in your glass?
Well, we're solo cupping it out
Love
because
it, love it.
we are in the middle of packing and all of our glassware is packed. But we are just doing a little vodka orange Fanta, sugar free orange Fanta with probably like 2.5 shots of vodka because we're going to get into it. So, yeah.
Oh, I definitely respect that. I'm just
hmm
rocking out the classic Cosmo here. Nothing
Love
crazy,
that.
nothing crazy.
I don't think I've ever had a Cosmo before. I'm going to order one next time I go to the bar.
You definitely need to, at least for the throwback vibes, at
Yeah.
least for the vibes.
For sure.
So, Chanel, I have
Mhm.
to ask you this. You
Mhm.
describe yourself as the internet's favorite Ozempic villain. Why that label?
Can't say that label because I think that sharing your journey on this medication, I feel like for some reason it's looked at as negative to encourage other people to do it. I don't think people really like seeing you. I think people don't mind you sharing your journey, but I think people don't like you being like, you know what? Yeah, you should do it and you should tell your mama to do it and you should tell your daddy to do it too. And I don't know. I just feel like if anybody's gonna make y'all mad, it might as well just be me. So
So you just go for it.
oh
Well,
yeah.
if you're going to just go for it, I support that.
hmm
Now, if we're going for it, we ask all of our guests if they have a cheers for anything. Are you
hmm
going to do a cheers to being the internet's number one Ozempic villain, or what's your cheers to today?
Do you know what? I will do a cheers to being the world's Ozempic villain. I love that. That is so cute.
Cheers to that.
Mhm.
In online spaces, a lot of creators allow the audience and their opinions to define who they are and the
Mhm.
content that they actually create. How do
Mhm.
you actually break out of that kind of mold?
I think I break out of that by that's such a good question. I think I've never been in the mold, to be honest. I think I
Ooh.
started out sharing my journey and then it just grew into a whole thing from there. And
Mhm.
I see I wouldn't even call it feedback, but I see the comments that people put on there. But I think for me, it has a lot to do with just being very sure of myself, being very sure of my goals when it comes to my own health, and then also my career goals with being a content creator. So, I mean, it's been working so far. So I'm going to stay in the lane and keep doing what I'm doing and not let the opinions of others influence that for sure.
I love that you draw a line between comment and feedback.
Yeah. Because
What
it's
what is the actual line between the 2?
I think so it's interesting. This girl commented on one of my things 2 days ago, and I've been debating if it's something I wanna respond to, but
Mhm.
she made a comment where she said, "Feel like the way you portray your before and afters, makes it seem like a negative point of view of what you thought about yourself before," and she's like, I see your befores, and I think you're really beautiful, and I feel the way you're portraying that is, like, a negative way to the body positivity movement and all of that," and I was like, interesting, interesting. And
Mhm.
I've really been thinking about it for the past couple of days because on one hand, I wasn't happy with how I looked before. And I feel like it's fair for me to portray the emotion that I did have about myself before. And then on that same topic, I think I'm kind of getting off topic, but when it comes to the body positivity movement, especially with GLP-1s, that's such a tricky space.
Mhm.
And that's not my content at all. My content is not body positivity. My content is weight loss, GLP-1. And that's not to say it's not body positivity, but body positivity typically leans in a specific direction. And that's just not the
Right.
direction my content is in. But yeah, I feel like that was feedback, right? She wasn't rude about it. She wasn't nasty. Like that's genuinely her perception. And I was like, okay, versus someone being like, when you get off of it, be ready for the lawsuit because it's coming. You know what I'm saying? Like those are two
Yeah.
very different things. So yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
very
No, the line's definitely clearly drawn between the 2 of those.
Mhm.
Now, I do wanna go back to this body positivity conversation
Let's do it.
because my perception of the body positivity movement was
Mhm.
that they encourage you to embrace your body in whatever size,
Yes.
large, small, whatever.
Yes.
Right, but it seems like part of this movement may have lost its way, and it's only focusing on larger bodies,
Yes.
because how can the content you create not be considered body positive when you're loving your body as is in its current size?
Literally, I agree, and it seems like they're has definitely been a thick line drawn of body positivity equals being in a bigger body, and you need to stay in that bigger body, regardless of how you regardless of what's going on, even health stuff. Like you should
Mm,
be happy. You should be loud and you should be proud. And nobody's saying that you shouldn't, but also it's really unfair to let's talk about like the Remy Bader. I think that's her thing. She was a body positive creator. She got her weight
mhm,
loss surgery. She didn't share it. Now, I do feel like she could have went about that extremely different. I think when you are a creator in a specific space, you don't get to pick and choose like what's private. You know what I'm saying? You just
right,
don't get to do that because that's what you
mhm.
put yourself. You don't get to be a lifestyle creator and show your husband every day, and now all of a sudden he's gone. And you don't want nobody asking where your husband at. That's just not how these things work. Like it's just not how it works. But people absolutely tore her down, but, like, if that's something she wanted to do, wanted to, needed to, like, it really I don't know that I've had points in my content creation where I've wanted to talk about the body positivity movement, but I just
Mhm.
feel like it would be a disaster. Like, I feel like it would be a disaster. I feel like there's, like, a difference being, like, the Ozempic Villain. I know what I'm gonna get, but I feel like that is just a whole 'nother door that I just, like, really Imma leave it to the people that's doing it.
So you're gonna leave that conversation for others. So
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
that brings me to my next question
Mhm,
because you're defining how you want to engage and how
mhm,
you want to be perceived.
mhm.
How do people even take that first step to defining themselves, particularly in online spaces?
I think it takes a while. I think it
Oh,
takes a while to do so. I mean, I feel like it took a while for me to do so. Yeah. I think going back to it, I think it still takes some time. Like I think it
yeah.
takes time. I think getting online, picking up a camera, that's an adjustment, right? That's not a normal way that we live our lives. And you may get on here and share a lot more of yourself and your life in the beginning, and then you learn, you know what? I don't want to do that. I may want to reel it in. Or you may start off more of a private person, and then you're like, you know what? I'm willing to give a little bit more of myself. So I think it's just a give and take. And then situations can happen. You know what I'm saying? You can share something and then you're like, well, that was great. Or something really traumatic can happen to you individually. And you're like, I don't have that community within my real life. So let me go online and find that community. And like, so it's just, I think it just takes some time to figure it out for sure.
It seems like that's quite risky though, right? Like if
Hmm.
you leave it up to time,
Mhm.
because at that point, won't people have the urge to start defining who you are? Won't you have to push back at some point?
That's true. That's a good perspective of it, but I think they're gonna do that regardless. Like, I think
Mm,
that's gonna happen. I think, like, Jackie Aina is a perfect example of that. People are going to define who you are regardless, no matter how much you share, how little you share, the way you comment on something. Like, I feel like people are just going to definitely gonna make their own opinion, but I do agree that, like, time, especially if you are really, like, dedicating yourself to this, like, time will definitely kind of delay or cause issues with the way that people can perceive things if you don't make it, like, clear. And even, like, boundaries too, if you don't make your boundaries clear with people as
mhm.
well, like, they'll definitely yeah. Yeah.
How would you describe your current boundaries? Would you say that they're pretty strong or are they a little bit flexible or
Say they're pretty strong. I feel like I was definitely I used to go live a lot. I used to go live a lot. I always say, like, I wanna get back to it, I wanna do it more. But I feel like I definitely didn't have as many boundaries then as I do
right?
now, and just the way I conversed with people, because I do feel like there were a few parasocial relationships developing, and I really didn't know how to navigate that. 'Cause
Mhm.
I mean, who does, right? Like, who does? Because 'Cause I'm an extremely empathetic person, and I don't ever wanna hurt someone's feelings, but also, are you okay? You know what I'm saying? Like, are you
Right?
alright? 'Cause
Like this isn't really a back and forth.
yeah,
Like
like, I have my people that I've met and I have relationships outside of, but yeah, I did learn, like, people will really see you online and talk to you and be like, "Yeah, that's my girl for real," and it's like, "Girl, I just told you how to put audio on your video, like, that's all we did." So, it's just it's interesting for sure.
now we've talked a bit about perception and even a bit about feedback, right?
Mhm,
I want to circle back to that just a little bit because I'm thinking about the point where people are feeling super invested in you and
Yeah,
they're providing feedback and criticism because
yeah,
they view that they have this connection with you.
yeah.
Like, how important of a role is that kind of constructive criticism in the way you actually define yourself? Or do you have to define yourself completely outside of that?
I definitely feel like I've defined myself completely outside of that, so there's no feedback or criticism that I take to heart for sure. There's
Oh,
something that may be like, "Oh, you know what? Let me think about that." Like, and literally the example I gave earlier is the only example I would say in the 2 years that I've been doing content. This is the first time where someone has said something where I've been like, I feel like this can be constructive feedback. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I am portraying something a certain way. And I don't want people to think, like, oh, larger bodies are not beautiful because I feel like that's kind of what she was getting at, that I portray it like that. And that's not it at all. But I just felt like my larger body wasn't. But I also get to convey that too. But yeah, there isn't anything really that feedback or criticism. I feel like I'm very much define myself online, but also throughout my weight loss journey, become very secure in myself. So there really isn't much anybody could say at this point.
now when we're talking like larger bodies, I
Hmm.
feel like it's important that people are given the space to feel the way they feel about their bodies,
I agree.
large, small,
Yeah.
otherwise,
Hmm.
just because for a lot of people in larger bodies that may not always be in the healthiest situation. Not saying all large bodies
Yeah.
aren't healthy, but if
Hmm.
yours particularly isn't in a healthy situation, that dislike can be a driving force for
Absolutely.
you to make a health change.
Absolutely.
And so I don't understand why we can't embrace the fact that, I don't always love my
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
Like, because that's human, is it not? Or am
It
I
literally
am making
is.
that up?
No, it literally is, and it seems like, especially with the body positivity movement, the only acceptable way that you can lose weight in that community is if it is a health issue, which I really kind of also dislike because that it's invalidating the fact of how you may feel about yourself outside of that. Like, I notice people give me a lot more grace online when they're like, "Oh, okay, you were pre-diabetic, you have PCOS, you have this," even though I started this journey just because I wanted to lose weight because I was 100% unhappy with how I looked. There was no medical issues I knew prior to getting blood work done. It was 100% vanity, like that they like to say. So I feel like in the movement, it's like you better be on your last leg to have to lose this weight, and if it's not that, no, you just it's crazy.
You're saying you basically gotta be grandma with the sugar so high, they're about to amputate that foot before
Yeah,
you
yeah, you
decide
you
to
better have you
actually do something?
yes, above the knee. It better be above the knee in order for you to have to lose some weight. Outside of that, then you must just take, and it's like, girl, anyways.
I wonder if part of that is a feeling of abandonment, right? Like,
That's
if
fair.
s if they feel like everyone rushes towards a smaller body, will they be left alone on that
Yeah,
end of the spectrum
yeah,
in the movement?
yeah.
Because I know being in a larger body, it can feel lonely a lot of the time. And then
Mhm.
when you find a community of people, like I'm assuming the body positive movement provides a lot of people,
Yeah,
is you want to hold on to it as tightly as possible so
yeah,
that loneliness doesn't return.
yeah.
But at what point do we draw the line where we say, personal choice actually has to come before, you know, the entire community?
I absolutely agree, and that takes me to a discussion I saw with the plus size models,
Yeah.
being really unhappy when GLP-1s first started coming out because they noticed that they weren't getting as much work. Brands started taking away 4X, 3X, 2X, and now they went from 4 sizes past extra large to now an X may be the largest size. And they completely contribute that to GLP-1s. I think in general, this movement of GLP-1s definitely has given companies the gall to do things like that. You know what I'm saying? But it's
Mhm.
unfortunate that because I 100% understand where they're coming from, but I also 100% understand what it feels like to be on the medication and to be like, there's nothing that would change the fact of this for me? So it's interesting. It's an interesting discussion for sure.
Such a
Mhm.
tightrope to
It
walk.
really is. It really is.
I do want to go back to defining ourselves though,
Mhm.
because what a lot of what we've been talking about is changing as a person.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if do you believe that growth actually means at some point you have to redefine yourself, or is it just a matter of refining how you've already defined yourself?
Hmm. I would like to think of it as refining. I
Okay.
think you know what? I do feel like that is going to be subjective to each individual, but I can speak for my specific situation. I feel like it was refining who I was. I feel like who I am is who I always wanted to be, and in my head, who I always thought I was, but I felt like I couldn't portray that because the insecurities was there. I wasn't confident. I wasn't happy. I had my own things going on, and I feel like now I have been able to refine who I actually am, and I can like actually live in my truth or what I have folks be saying, but yeah,
Living your truth. No, that's
your
exactly
truth.
what
Yeah.
it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's absolutely what it is.
Yeah.
Like being able to living your truth is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It's unmistakably you being the hopefully best version of yourself if you're living in your truth.
Yes, I
And
agree.
hopefully it's that's the case.
Yeah.
Now, you I would don't take this the wrong way,
Okay.
but I'm gonna describe you as authentic. Which
Okay.
would that be a fair assessment? Okay, okay.
Mhm.
So, being authentically you,
Mhm.
what has been the hardest part about showing up authentically as a creator every single time you post something online?
What has been the hardest thing about showing up authentically as myself? I would probably say not getting burnt out. I think that would
Uh-huh.
probably be like the hardest thing because I feel like I burnt out from doing lives. I think that was a big thing for me. I feel like I was so authentically myself, and I know that I am very friendly. I know I give like, "Yeah, girl, we can hang out this weekend," you know what I'm saying? And that is just like it can just be exhausting. Like, it can just be exhausting doing the same thing. I feel like doing content is such a especially when you're doing things like that, like a lot more face to face, it is just like you give and you give and you give and it's like it is draining. Like, it is absolutely draining. Um,
Mhm.
and I had stopped doing content around the time that my aunt passed, and at that time, I just had literally nothing to give, and I felt like and ever since then, I have been really struggling to get back into it because I think I just remember how exhausted I was during that time.
When you say exhausted, a lot of people aren't gonna understand that. They're gonna be like,
Yeah,
"You're just talking to your
yeah,
phone. How can
mhm.
that be exhausting?"
Yeah. I think it's the same feeling people get when you are like a social burnout. You've been around people and people are like, "Well, you're not actually around." And it's like, I actually think it's worse because there's like it is just constant like comment after comment after comment. And especially with the space that we're in, the repetition is exhausting. To be honest, the ignorance is exhausting. You know what I'm saying? It's just a lot. Like it's sometimes it can be a lot of hand holding and it's like you want to do that, right? Because we had people that held our hand when we first started. We had guidance and we had people we could fall back on and all of that. But I think like the more you do it and the larger you get, it's like, all right, it's time. So yeah, I do feel like people it would be hard to understand that it is exhausting, but it really is.
Now, I do think that everybody deserves to be poured back into. When you're
Mhm.
creating content, how the heck do you get poured back into? Because, as you said, most of the time, this is a one-way deal
Mhm.
where you are talking to the screen
Yeah.
or you get some comments every once in a while. But, like, is that enough to pour back into you? Or how do you get poured back into in this space?
I think, like, building, like, the relationships that you get with people, like I say, like, there are parasocial relationships, and it's been, like, just a couple of those where I feel like it was a little, like, alright. But I feel like you have a community online, but then you have, like, a real community, like, a real small group of people where like, they're always gonna be there. You're talking in the DMs, they're commenting on their posts, they're supporting you, they're checking in on you when you haven't posted in a while because they know your schedule. I think getting genuine comments or DMs from people being like, "You have no idea, like, how much you just sharing and being vulnerable has actually helped me because I told my husband and I didn't get the support that I wanted, and I watched your videos until XYZ time, and this gave me all the support I need. Getting comments like that is like, wow, like, because for me, to be honest, I don't think I'm making that much of an impact. I don't think I'm doing that much. I'm just sharing and I'm just like, yeah, this is my journey. This is how it's been. This is. And to know that for people, it just, it's bigger than what I think it is. It's just like, wow. Like, it's always shocking, to be honest.
So when will you know that you've made an impact if you don't think you're making an impact now?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that could probably be like a little bit of imposter syndrome too. I think it could be
Mhm.
some of that of just feeling like, I don't know. I think it's definitely some imposter syndrome for sure. Some things that I need to definitely work on myself.
Hey, if you need to lay on somebody's couch and have a conversation, I'm always
Mhm.
a fan of that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Always a fan of that. So
Just
tell
you have to
me
come say hi.
so tell me, what do
Mm.
you envision your next evolution will be?
You know, as a creator,
Mhm,
I
absolutely.
would love so I love GLP-1. Like, I love GLP-1, and I feel like I'll always do GLP-1 content, but I'd love to evolve into more of just like just life after weight loss. Like, here is life, what life looks like after achieving the body that you want, achieving the health that you want, you finally getting into that jean size, like, just more just like day in the life. Like, here is what things are like now that just post weight loss, because I feel like we live in weight loss for so long, and then we
Mhm.
finally get to the end, and it's just like, I don't really know what to do now because this has been the past 17 years of my life trying to figure out how to get to this point. So, like, let's live in this now and see what life feels like. So that would be what I would like to.
You kinda wanna give that glimpse into the world of what real living is, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, a lot of people in larger bodies feel like their life is on hold, so
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I think that would be impactful for a lot of people if you decide to share that or
Yeah,
evolve into that as I
yeah, I
asked.
think so too. I think it would be great.
So, Chanel, I have to ask at least one more question, if I may.
Mhm.
Where the heck can people find you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube at Chanelica R. That's my handle on all socials. I like to try to keep it simple. TikTok is definitely my biggest platform. We're working on growing on Instagram. YouTube, I don't post as much on there. Literally, one of my friends today was like, "Girl, what are you doing?" So I want to get back into that. But yeah, that is definitely where people.
Awesome. Well, Chanel, I would like to have at least one more cheers, if we may.
Okay.
I would like to raise a glass to defining ourselves, being
Mm-hmm.
the villain, being the hero, and just being true.
I love that. Cheers to that. And cheers to you for
Cheers.
doing this. This is awesome. I really appreciate you having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Chanel.
Mhm.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to all of the listeners for tuning in. And this has been Cheers to This.